The Orthodox Church of Ukraine is assuming, as is the Church of Constantinople, that ultimately this issue with the Moscow Patriarchate in Ukraine is going to be resolved. I think that what we're seeing is not surprising, that the Church of the Moscow Patriarchate has hardened its position in Ukraine. It's only been not even quite a month yet since the Tomos, so it's still very early. But nevertheless, we have not had any more bishops move from the Moscow Patriarchate to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. There have been some communities and some clergy that have been moving, but so far the response from Moscow has been severe. And this is not even bringing into the commentary Putin reiterating what had been said by Sergei Lavrov and Dmitry Peskov earlier, that the Russian Federation reserves the right to defend their people. That's something to keep in the backs of our minds. So far, there hasn't been a huge, really public controversy surrounding one of the Lavras or something major. The tempers have not flared enough to cause a full-blown crisis yet in Ukraine. But I think that we have to be realistic that if there is going to be a unification, a complete unification, it may take a decade or two. It's going to take a long time. And if there's an attempt to coerce churches of the Moscow Patriarchate, they're only going to resist more. No matter what one makes of this, no matter how much we think that one might think that this is unjust or unreasonable, there's a history behind it, and we have to respect that history and that rationale. And many of these people are just as Ukrainian as anyone else. So I think that the question remains of what can be done on the ground to help to cool tempers, to create some peace. And it's extremely complicated because the leaders of the Moscow Patriarchate in Ukraine have so far refused to even meet with the leaders of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. Again, notwithstanding it is very early in the process. First, the laws that were passed by the Ukrainian parliament and signed, the Moscow Patriarchate has interpreted these as hostile to their position, the laws that would require them to change their name to the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and also the law that grants all of the decision-making power to the community as a whole on which jurisdictional affiliation they're going to have. On the one hand, the state has to have some kind of legislation in place to adjudicate such situations. On the other hand, the Moscow Patriarchate is interpreting these as being hostile and implicating specifically them in these situations. What's missing from all of this is the question of, can there be a renewal of dialogue at the official level between the leaders of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine and the Moscow Patriarchate? There had been dialogues in earlier years under the leadership of Metropolitan Volodymyr of blessed memory, and also early in the tenure of Metropolitan Onufry. There were dialogues set into place. And so it will be interesting to see if over a period of time there might be some kind of cooling of tempers or some kind of a new process that could be initiated that could help to ease the situation. So, for example, could the two churches exist side by side and create an atmosphere of mutual Eucharistic intercommunion without necessarily having administrative union? This is something that I think that some people hope for instead of a process of coercion, of trying to take by force parishes. And so it will be interesting for us to watch this situation. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because it is quite prevalent in the media outside of Ukraine. And we also have the question of, what about the other Orthodox churches in the world? So far, not one of them has recognized the Orthodox Church of Ukraine as being autocephalous. We don't know about a recognition of their canonicity. Now, we're going to have to watch this carefully because there are many things happening. First of all, these processes always move slowly. Never do you have something that's hasty. I think had autocephaly been granted to a completely unified church, that recognition would have come rather quickly. But because you have this media war playing out between the two sides, there's really been no stopping the back and forth. Recognition is going to be slow. We know for certain that the synods of the Bulgarian and the Georgian church have been discussing the matter, and so far all we've had is an official statement from the church in Georgia acknowledging that autocephaly has been given to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine and pleading for calm and for stopping the polemical warfare. In fact, there was a news item that circulated the other day that the Georgians have been arguing with the Moscow Patriarchate about this, and that the Georgians are claiming that they will take as much time as they need to look at the situation. Reports have also emerged that, and this is easy to find, so this is not going to be new to anyone, the church in Antioch and the Church of Serbia stand firmly with the Moscow Patriarchate. The Patriarch of Serbia recently announced that they do not recognize the canonicity or the autocephaly of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine because they disagree with the method used by the Ecumenical Patriarchate. And the Church of Antioch has also joined, as well as the head of the church in Poland. So a number of churches, I think about 5 churches, have publicly called for the convocation of a pan-Orthodox synod to resolve this issue once and for all. And it is my opinion that that synod will not take place. I could be wrong, but we'll see. We also know that the Church of Greece and the Church of Romania will be taking up this issue in synods that are forthcoming probably in February. And it seems highly likely that the Church of Cyprus is going to recognize the canonical autocephaly of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. So this is something for us to watch, because the whole point of this was to bring the Orthodox Church of Ukraine into communion with all of the churches. And the process is going to be slow, and there are people who are frustrated by that process, and they're feeling its tension outside of Ukraine. You know, there's a question of, well, when are they going to come out and make a declaration? So I think that we're going to see, I would be very surprised if there was no recognition at all for the entirety of this year. I think that probably by the end of the year, about half of the churches will officially recognize the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and that will begin the process of communion. But that there will also be some churches that deny recognition, and that's a problem that at some point has to be resolved by all of the Orthodox churches.